Asthana joins us here with Ruchi Soya Industries, and he's going to walk us through the implications of the new relaxation on the import duty for oil and how that will impact a company like Ruchi Soya. Mr. Asthana, good morning. Thank you for joining us. What will be the immediate impact of the government measures on removing import duty?
So good morning, and thanks for having me on the show. The immediate impact is going to be that we will see a reduction in prices because the duty has been completely waived, and the agri-cess plus the customs duty combined is about 5.5%. So we expect, if not the entire 5.5%, but certainly 70-80% of that should immediately start reflecting back on prices. And I'm expecting that we should see a reduction of anywhere between 3 to 5 rupees in the cost at which it's available per kilo to the customer.
And as percentage of the total sales, how much will that affect you?
So in terms of the effect to us, the impact is, as you know, that in the edible oil industry, it's more a pass-through. So to that extent, it's beneficial for consumers. It's good for the large companies and organized processors, because the TRQ, the conditionality is that unless you have a processing capacity which has got an import-export code, and only basis that the tariff quota will be released. So which is pro-industry in one sense that, more organized players will be able to access the quota. And it is certainly very positive for the consumers for the availability of oil at cheaper values.
Case now that a duty cut has been implemented, what will you do? Would you prioritize it and pass it on to the customers, or given that your margins are under pressure, you are likely to absorb it?
No, so normally, as I explained earlier, it is not about absorbing losses or passing on. I think most of the companies, would tend to pass it on to the consumers because they have no choice. The moment the margins in the industry are very razor thin, so irrespective, it's the competitive market forces which are going to drive, the pricing. And I'm expecting that most of the companies will be able to pass on entire benefit to the consumers, and perhaps even more as well. If prices were to drop further, it will have a cascading effect of better pricing for the consumer.
My immediate follow-up question would be that rupee also has depreciated. So one side, well, there is a benefit which would come in, but on the other side, if rupee has depreciated, that will nullify all the advantage.
So that's correct. Most of the importers, as you know, the large corporates, we, for example, every time we do a contracting, we immediately, hedge our dollar exposure. And the dollar exposure, as you would see, is not, enormous in terms of the rupee depreciation. So I expect that to be very marginal, maybe about, 0.25%, if at all, your dollar exposure remains on the overall price, overall scheme of things. So to that extent, I don't think it will have a big impact. But yes, if dollar were to depreciate suddenly and your FX exposure is uncovered, to that extent, there might be a challenge on the pricing. That's absolutely right.
Have Indonesian palm oil prices stabilized? Because that's a very large component of your imports, because there is a lot of volatility there.
So the palm oil prices, as you are aware, that Indonesia has imposed a quota system. So exports continue to be allowed now, and against a quota that you have to seek from the government. And they have their own reasons to do that, basically to control the consumer prices. I expect that situation should ease because, the storage capacity in Indonesia is under stress. There's a massive pressure from the refiners and the farmers because nearly more than 60% of Indonesia's palm oil production is dotted by smaller farmers. And so there's a big pressure to allow exports. And so I expect palm to stabilize. I expect this step which the government has taken to reduce the customs duty will have a positive impact on the entire process of the price discovery. And net-net, this is a beneficial step. And one should hope and expect that, the overall table of edible oil complex itself remains more stable now, because I think we have seen the peak. So hopefully over coming weeks, we should see the prices settling down.
Is this can I safely say the worst is behind? I'm purely perhaps trying to understand a question which will have sensitivity in terms of forward guidance. But can I say that the worst is behind and now incrementally margin pressures will abate and things will only improve?
Yeah, so I would not go that far to say that worse is behind us, because the fact remains that there are a lot of uncertainties on the horizon. So for one, that the weather markets in the U.S., the situation in Russia and Ukraine is far from resolved right now. And we're getting into the peak production season of, palm in Malaysia, Indonesia. So to that extent, the palm seems more comfortable. Soya and sun are in the territory of a little bit of uncertainty. But net, I would say that, the prices, the way they have spiked, we could say, but we should watch out. I would not yet sort of say that the worst is behind us.
With Ruchi Soya, we always tend to focus on the oil business, but now we know that you're also looking at merging some of your other businesses into this. What is the update there in terms of inflationary pressures? I mean, in your other product lines?
So there is a clear-cut pressure. For example, on the, our biscuits business, very clearly that the spike in prices, what we witnessed in wheat flour, what we are seeing in the palm oil, and the edible oil, and the sugar, it has been more stable of the three. So clearly there is pressure on the massive pressure on certain businesses. And we are trying our best, because the ultimately market is the final arbiter as to, from whom they wish to buy. And companies are looking at cost cuts. Companies are looking at, packaging, some bit of, planning around the weight of the package, what is given to the consumers. And likewise, efforts are being made that how do you trim down the cost without, impacting, too much the consumer pricing. So to that extent, I would confess that there are some pressures, but we are working around those to make sure that, we stay profitable and we do better. So there is obviously some efficiency, a lot of work we're doing on logistics, on, setting up plants closer to the consumer location. So a lot of work, but industry is under pressure in certain segments.
So just to wrap it up, we've spoken about concerns, inflationary pressure, margin impact, shrinkflation. What is the good news?
Sorry, I didn't get your question.
My question is that what is the good news? I mean, good always comes with bad. We've only discussed the bad news. What is the good news for a company like Ruchi Soya?
No, so good news is that, anything which is pro-consumer, I think it's always positive. So edible oils, which continues to be our largest segment, is very positive for us. And we believe that, the market, the demand is pretty stable. The supply side is improving right now. So it's very positive. Our food business is extremely positive. And likewise, our oil palm plantation benefits from the higher pricing. So net-net, it's a good situation for Ruchi Soya in terms of the forward, how we go forward, and, both in terms of the profitability and the scale. I don't anticipate any significant setback on account of all these issues.
Okay, Sanjeev, good to have you on the show, and we're glad that there are more positives than negatives right now. Good speaking with you as always. Let's